The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning, all of you. I've got a wonderful guest joining us right now, Robin A. Williams, otherwise known as Fairy Queen Flutterby, is joining us. It is notable to say that this is not her first time on the show. It is just her first time this decade. And previously, when she was on the show, she was on as her alter ego, Fairy Queen Flutterby. So, Robin, thank you so much for joining us again. We're so excited to hear what you're up to now.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Are you sure? That's kind of a loaded question.
Well, you've got a lot going on.
I really do. So, as I am evolving again, when you interviewed me the first time, I had just kind of come out of a long run of empty nest, and my career of 38 years had ended as a massage and PT therapist. And then someone said, "Hey, isn't your nickname Flutterby? And didn't you write some books as a little girl? And you're a great storyteller. Stop being depressed and go be a storyteller." And I started advocating for ASD and got my own formal diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome. And it took off, and it was exciting. I was traveling the globe, and I love to tell people my tag is teaching through the art of storytelling. No matter the challenge, you too can be a big hero. Got to do the fairy voice. And it was a wonderful career. 5 countries, 18 states, got my book in 42 countries that I wrote as a little girl at 7. And then something happened. And then COVID blew up my career. And we were slated to go to so many places. It was devastating. It was a real devastating blow. So I had to pivot and figure it out. I've always done journalism and writing, so I started working for a small paper where I moved here in North County, San Diego, and it was going pretty well. And then something else happens, and that blew up. Who stops doing social media after you build them 27,000 followers? I don't know. Anyway, the fact of the matter is social media was evil all of a sudden to the same person that loved that I got all that people. But so long story short, I had to take on some bread and butter jobs that were very much out of my comfort zone. But in doing these jobs, I learned basically the most underserved people. They're considered throwaways, and it's really sad. And I was a coach for a program, and it was really hard. It's kind of like when you're scared of a dog and a dog knows you're scared, so they're going to bite you. Well, if you have any fear with these people, it's like wearing a red flag. They're definitely going to test you. And I was trying to be a program director there, and they weren't quite ready for program directing. So they convinced me to be a coach. And it's a 3-on-1 and 1-on-1 kind of situation. So you can imagine by that number how extreme these people are. Well, it didn't work for me. I tried really hard. I fell in love with many of my clients, but unfortunately it was a little much. Maybe if I was 30, but now I'm almost 60. So then it led me to kind of refocusing. What do I really need to be doing? Well, now that I've learned about all these other things going on in the world, I need to focus on getting brilliance on the spectrum out there, just like you, being able to support myself and bring in other kinds of awareness, which can bring in funding for places like this center that I was working for. Amazing. So now I have this whole new drive to try to come up with those dollars, because every time I would go to my employers and the directors and the people there that was running it, they'd always do this. Yeah. It was always a lack of that.
It takes money. And we have to say, as I got to interrupt you for just a second, because they always say don't ever do something with animals and children because they will upstage you. You have a wonderful dog behind you who is trying very desperately to
Oh my gosh, I'm not even aware. Should I go move him out of the way?
No, he's fine, but we have to acknowledge it. He didn't sign a release form, but he's fine.
Did you see his big, beautiful cone of shame?
We have seen
poor baby. He got hit by a coyote in the butt.
Oh no! And we've also heard his cone of shame. So we just have to acknowledge what the sound is. If you guys that are listening in podcasts are hearing something, the dog is just being very much a dog and trying to steal Robin's glory.
Thunder.
Yes, her thunder and her glory.
Let me take away that toy, may I, just real quickly, because he is definitely gonna
Sure.
be throwing it around.
It's kind of hilarious, but I wanted you to know, and I wanted people who are listening to know, it sounds like every once in a while that
I'm going to turn this because I'm only dressed on the top side.
Well, and I'm in my bedroom slippers, so we're all equal and even.
I'm all business on top, and I'm a slumber party on the bottom.
There we go. It's all good. I assure you.
But
so
the
anyway,
puppy was having fun with his new bone, so he's poor thing had deserved.
You have to let him. Yeah, you have to let him. But we wanted people to know that it would not to adjust their audio, that there is a wonderful Fluffy in the background stealing focus. So let's get really, because this podcast, you're about to launch it, and it's going to be something that everybody's going to want to listen to, because you've got an incredible lineup of people I know that you've already interviewed. I don't know why I'm included in them, because I don't belong in the illustrious group that you've got.
Shannon, you're the glue.
No. Talk a little bit about some of the guests that you've already recorded with, because when you launch, you've already got a library of videos. So
it is exciting. So that's what we've been doing. We've been doing interviews and building up. As a matter of fact, tomorrow's interview is with Isaac C. Singleton Jr., who has been on Deadpool and Pirates of the Caribbean, over 200 movies. He's amazing. He was our spokesperson for my charity before COVID destroyed that. And then Ayla Fox, who is the Fairy Queen Flutterby version in steampunk, Lily Flutterby Winger, who did my Comic-Con appearances and all that kind of stuff and toured with me all over the world. She's amazing. So I get to interview them tomorrow and talk about the work they do for my charity and other charities in autism as cosplayers. So that's very exciting. And then I've got to interview you, which is so exciting, because, you were my first big interview, and it was really nice to have you on that roster. And then we've got George Steeves, and he's a brilliant actor and producer. And we've got Danny Bowman of Danimation, who I got to meet before she became Danimation. Right. And I mean, she's just always been this spunky, quirky little, girl. And then she's just grown into this beautiful entrepreneurial woman. And she doesn't let her ASD slow her down one bit. No. You have to follow her on Instagram. She does the funnest videos. And then we've got Joey Travolta of Inclusion Films and John Paez of Performing Studio Arts West. Want to get that right? And many other people.
Amazing. Can I tell you a quick funny
Please do.
Danny Bowman story? So we went last week, my son and I, we went to Las Vegas. I don't know if you've ever heard of Meow Wolf. Have you heard of this?
Say it one more time.
Meow Wolf.
No, I have. That's not one yet.
A group of artists first in New Mexico got together, and they took over a bowling alley, and they created this artist experience where it feels like you're walking into a home, but you open up the refrigerator and it's a portal to another world, that, like, almost like an underworld that you get to go to. So, and it was so popular that now they've opened different ones all over the country. And in Las Vegas, they have one that's called Omega Mart, and it's a grocery store. Oh. But it's a weird grocery store, and you go in and there are 9 portals to get to these other worlds. It's crazy. It's the best thing ever. But we went there they're very autism friendly. They're all autism accredited and trained. Every employee has been trained how to deal with sensory issues. So we went there to interview them and to find out about this amazing place. Sure. And we're walking around. We've just interviewed the people that are running it. And there's a display of fruit. And in the fruit, there's a cutout where someone can stick their head out for a picture. And who's in the cutout but Danny Bowman?
Oh my God, I love it.
And I thought I was having an out-of-body experience.
She has arrived.
Because we're not home. We're not in Los Angeles. We're in Las Vegas. And I stood there and I was like, is that Danny Bowman? And I said it a little too loud. And she looked up and she was like, Shannon, what are you doing here? And I said, what are you doing here? And then Rachel Barcelona walked up. and I said, what is happening right now?
It's a small world.
Well, they were in town because Rachel is vying for Miss America this week. By the time this airs, we'll know what has happened. But so Rachel went to because she's Miss Florida, right. And Danny, they're best friends. So Danny went to support her. But it was just the craziest thing. We also saw Dee
I saw the
Snider.
videos. I saw her videos they were making together. They were super sweet. I just love
Hilarious.
Annie.
They're
She's just
both wonderful.
yes.
And Dee Snider was there too of Quiet Riot. But
Oh,
other than that, we didn't know anyone.
well, you knew that you knew the most important people.
Well, and the fact that her head was sticking out of a wall of fruits and vegetables,
That's
it
hilarious.
was really surreal,
That
as
is.
was everything else at Meow Wolf.
Oh,
You got to go if you have the
well,
opportunity.
for Vegas, period.
Yes, it was it was very, very bizarre. But anyway, we love. So now, when do you think you're going to launch this podcast?
Well, okay. So my producer, who I'm so thrilled. I had met some people and at the studio, and he was just introduced to me kind of like accidentally. And I don't know what I did to impress him or whatever, but I had talked about this show that I would love to do, which is the one what we're doing right now. And he contacts me, he got my information, and he contacts me a couple weeks later and he goes, "Hey, how's it going with that show idea of yours?" I said, "Well, I actually just acquired the name and we're, going to have a website and all these kinds of things. And well, what's your idea?" And I said, "Well, what Brilliance on the Spectrum to me means, it's giving a megaphone and shining a bright light on all things positive for autism and underserved. So anybody that's got innovative programming and creativity and and they have a good heart and they're just trying to do good, trying to add to the quality of life of this demographic. And I want to make sure that they have a platform. Now we have so many podcasts and platforms and all that, but I think Brilliance on the Spectrum is just the name of it itself. It just kind of says it all, right?
Yes.
Let's get all those people that are up and coming and that are brilliant and innovative and creative, doing positive things for our autism demographic and our underserved.
I love it.
So that's the thing. So Steve Casarino says, "Okay, I want to be your producer." And I'm like, "What?"
And he's wonderful.
Now, he's Chef Rock. Chef Rock's been all over the world. He started off I think he was in Hawaii for a long time cooking. He does cooking. He's on Channel 10 here locally. It's just, he's a hero of mine. He went to Ukraine and was cooking in the kitchen with Chef Andres for the World Kitchen when people were starting to cross over and they were, trying to escape and all that. And he's done just some amazing stuff. So he's producing my show. And our plan is to get X amount of shows under our belt. And now we're starting to look for sponsorships. And once we, get that going, he's got many platforms that it's already been approved for, iHeartRadio included. I think there's about 15 different platforms. So it'll be making the rounds. And as people find us, as they learn about us, and, and you too, anybody that you think we should interview, give a platform to, we would love that. So that's what we're doing. I'm kind of calling all of my old contacts from my fairy world. Like obviously you were from that world, and I
never thought of myself as being from the fairy world, but
absolutely.
Nice?
I have like a whole kind of dossier of all the people I met when I was fairy and when I was becoming fairy, and those are my special peeps. Those are the ones I close to my heart. And I knew that one day when things got better for me, I could reach out to you guys and you would still be there for me. And voila.
And we are.
And you are.
You ran into my nephew-in-law, I don't know how many years ago.
Oh my gosh, at the San Diego Love and Autism.
And he was there for a roofing conference, but he ran into you. And I don't know how you two struck up a conversation and then realized that you had me in common.
It was hilarious. I was in the fairy costume.
Yes. Believe me, he texted me and he said,
I think I scared him a little bit. I was kind of excited and intense, and I get kind of intense. And I don't think you scared him.
I think he thought it was hilarious. He was like, "Shannon, a fairy came up to me and told me she knew you." And I instantly knew who he was talking about. And I was like, okay. I thought that was really funny.
That's really interesting, because at that particular conference, it was, if I may kind of digress a little bit, I have kind of a funny story in that conference. So I was so excited, and it was my very first time being in the fairy costume at an actual autism event.
Oh,
and I didn't really know what to do with myself. And they said, "Well, just kind of stand there and be fairy and, talk about your books and whatever." Well, there was many people like myself on the spectrum, and it was someone's birthday. And someone came up to me and said, "Oh my God, we know you do voiceover and all this. You want to go up on stage with these guys and sing happy birthday?"
Okay.
And I was so excited. And I was like in the bathroom practicing me, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And now granted, all of these other people were like teenagers, kind of, young
Yeah.
adults. They were younger than me. There was definitely a generation gap, but I'm in a costume, and they all loved me. One of the young men wanted a photo with me, and his mom is really big in the whole autism world, and he's gone to Rockefeller Center. He sings. Thin
Okay.
man, you might know him. He's been at
Okay.
Rockefeller Center. He sings. Thin, tall guy.
Okay.
Well,
that describes a lot of people.
when
But
we
okay.
when we did the picture together, something that happens. The reason I created the program Relationships Are Us, which we were teaching sexual education and relationship building through cosplay.
Yeah.
For those on the spectrum that were not getting it.
Yes.
And that was the way to do it, was through costumes, right? So I said to his mom, oh my God, he'd be such a good candidate for Relationships Are Us and all this. Well, apparently he got a little excited.
Oh, yeah.
So because of that, one of the directors came up to me and said, Robin, we're so sorry. You can't come on stage and sing.
Oh,
I was
that's so
mortified.
sad. Yeah.
I didn't know why. I didn't know at
Yeah.
the time why.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was about 2 months later that I contacted somebody, because I couldn't let it go. And I'm trying not to be a dead horse beater, but it really stuck in my craw, and I was really hurt.
Yeah.
And I was almost shunned after that by all the people there.
Dear. Oh,
So,
so
and then she told me what happened.
That's
And she said
unfortunate.
it was a really crazy Robin. And and it's not the first time. It's not the first time. Like when I'm out as Robin, the reason I cut my hair short, I don't wear makeup, I dress down. Something about my personality, I just attract him.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. When I was a little girl, I would ask my dad, this guy drove up on a motorcycle and asked me if I wanted to have sex. And I'm like telling my dad this. He's like, quit talking like the fairy.
Oh, dear.
Use that cute little voice, honey. It attracts the wrong attention. You don't really understand what you're doing. And so, I've kind of had to deal with this on and off my whole life. And so when she told me that, like, that's when it really struck. I need to get out of the costume, get young, pretty cosplayers, which I did. And then I created Relationships Are Us, so I could go out and help this young man or people like this young man. So that they could get relationships. So Relationships Are Us was this program that we were doing, and we were helping people learn sex education through costume play. Like, you take Wonder Woman and Superman and put them in costumes, and you'd have like a pool noodle in it and an inner tube, literally, like props.
Okay.
And a raincoat and all these props, and then you would just have them act out sexual, relationships and interaction, and not just that, but like the art of conversation.
Yeah.
And we would set people up so that they could, for example, just talk on the phone, just practice. So we'd have each person would get X amount of people, and we'd have a schedule set up so they get to just practice talking to somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
And once they got all the pieces together and we could see that they were ready, we would take them to a Special Olympics event or an autism conference or Comic-Con or WonderCon or whatever con.
Right.
Con in North Carolina, it didn't matter. And they would go out, and instead of us getting stalked, because that's kind of how it started. Like, I didn't have 5,000 stalkers. I had 5,000 specials who mistook our kindness and just wanted to get boinked.
Oh.
So we realized they just were uneducated, and some of them were on that predator list and stuff. It was so bad. They were just uneducated.
So hard. Yes.
So once they got educated, and then we had kind of a litmus to see that they were ready, they would go out and they would get their own fairy.
Oh, there you go.
And it wasn't
That's
a dating
lovely.
service. It was just something to give them tools so they knew how to create. And it could be a relationship. Like, we had this one gentleman who's like a 6-year-old brain, 40-year-old body, and his 80-year-old parents are dying, and he scared everybody. So we were able to convince them to do this particular program. And he got to the point where he could learn to feed himself and answer the door and greet the mailman and like go to the puppet shows with the little kids, because now he's not scaring them. And so when his parents passed away, the family that absorbed him absorbed the Jolly Green Giant and not Frankensex.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, because, this is an area that we don't talk about enough. And I think people get a little squeamy. But I remember hearing Temple Grandin's mom, Eustacia Cutler, talk about the fact that if you I can't say the word, infantilize adults on the spectrum and don't teach them about sex, then you reap what you sow.
That's
and
right.
They have misunderstandings, and that we need to make sure that we are educating our adults as we would anyone.
I mean, like it's simple little things. Like we had this one gentleman, and I always call them Jane and John because I don't want to say people's names. But
right.
So Johnny was in trouble because every time they took him to the mall, which is a really big deal. A lot of these respite programs and these daycare programs, they take them to the mall so they can like spend their little money and go, learn how to use money and go to shopping and
right.
interact socially and all this. Well, this one guy was always in trouble because he would see a pretty girl, he would get overly excited. He would just run up and hug her and drive on her, and he didn't mean any harm, but he just couldn't control. He literally could not control himself.
Yeah.
So we started working with him, and we explained to him over and over and over and just in nauseam. And finally, we were able to teach him that when he met someone, give them a space bubble.
Yes.
So there's no contact. That way he's not going to, there's no incident,
yes.
right? So he goes up to the pretty girl in Starbucks when we're together and he says, "Hi, I'm Tommy," or "I'm Johnny. I'm giving you a space bubble." And he puts his arm out. "Would you like to have coffee with me?" Well, she's like, "No, thank you, Johnny," and walks away without incident. Now, we've also worked with him that's not a rejection, that's her choice.
Yes.
She just is making a choice. Like he's allowed to choose who he wants to talk to.
Yes.
Once we got that all out there, now he goes to Comic-Con. "Hi, I'm Johnny. I was giving you a space bubble," to this beautiful, beautiful little girl that was dressed in Pokemon. They're married now.
Oh, amazing. But when you say little girl, you mean,
I mean a young woman. I'm almost 60. Everybody under 30.
I just want to be clear because I don't want to get male.
Yes, I meant like a younger adult as well.
Yes.
He was small and petite and real cute.
Oh.
I think she was like 28 and he's like 40.
There we go.
So it worked out beautifully.
That's a great story.
And she never had a boyfriend, and her parents would never let her. And so she was having issues because she was so pent up. And so once we got that all straightened out, they live in mom and dad's bedsit. They both work in fast food, and they're married, and they boink like bunnies, and the government's not involved, and everybody's happy and safe. And
there we go.
So this is the kind of thing, or like where you have people that are so overly into a topic like electricity or Disney princesses or whatever. So we created something called Friend Chat. So we get people from online that are like electricians that are retired in a chat room, or people that are Disney freaks or whatever. And we match them up to a person and I literally had this young man in his 20s who all he wanted to talk about was electricity and the dynamics of electricity and the nuances. And like he could speak it like Einstein. So we found this old guy that was retired that every month for 2 hours, they would talk about electricity.
Yeah. And
the mom told me that it was the most amazing thing because he wasn't talking to everybody else about it anymore.
Yeah, because he had an outlet.
And so then people were really worried because like, oh, what if they start talking about other things? So we had it set up so that if they ever talked about anything except for what the thing was, that the person says, okay. And they hang up the phone, they call that person's, circle or team or parent.
Right.
And they say, okay, here's a red flag. That way there's no, issues. Because everyone's like, oh, what if they do this and what if they do that? No. So we kept it real clean and tight and tidy and had real success with things like that. And even though the charity's disbanded, I every once in a while will get like a DM or a text or something. Oh, I'm still talking to Diana, or I'm, still thank you so much. Or so I think we had to date before we disbanded 15,000.
And so will you do this again? Because it seems like it was a great thing.
It is. And my brother had to move to Arizona and that really kind of messed me up. Paul and Meg Smith. They worked with Judy Mark. They were working with her children and with her son, and Judy Mark's the one who said, Robin, no, I don't care what, you have to make that program. Because I told her about it at a meeting at one of the regional centers in LA years ago.
Yeah.
And then I'm at a conference for the a Judy Mark conference, all about what is it? The money's
I don't know.
The programming where people make a team and then they get funded and then they can independently go out and do their own, self-determination.
Yes. Okay.
So we're at a conference, and Andy at the time was the Autism Speaks president. He overheard me talking to somebody. He was interested in the program. And then Paul and May came up and said, Robin, he's not going to help you. We're going to help you.
Okay.
And they did. And we started it. And it was quite exciting, So we want to do it again.
I hope you will.
It will require some major funding. This is a program that you cannot do on Zoom. So COVID just ripped it apart, you know.
Yeah.
But Stephen Gaber hung in there with me. I did it with him on Zoom because he's much more high functioning, and he still to this day is like, when are you going to be a coach again? But really, I'm a director. I'm the creator, and not like to say I'm the boss or whatever, but like my girl, she's like, you're the queen fairy, you know, you're the boss fairy.
There you go.
And I have to delegate because I want to try to do everything, but I can't always.
Yeah.
So when's my show?
Yes.
About that again. Brilliance on the Spectrum.
Yes.
It's got the accreditation and the acclaim and the funding. That's when I'm going to be able to start really doing some good.
Amazing. Well, I just am so excited for you, and I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to have you on this decade. And we'll have to have you back on again. But we want everybody should they look starting on iHeartRadio for Brilliance on the Spectrum?
Now here's the thing. We're going to have a launch date. So if you go on, I have a website, I have a Facebook page, we have a YouTube channel. My producer's on vacation because, you know, summertime. So when he gets back, we are going to have that launch date. I'm going to email like all of you guys my launch date. Okay. And then you can maybe start, you know, sharing that with the world. And then one more thing I wanted to tell. So I'm no longer at that program I was in, but I am working with a woman named Kira Corser. She has something that everybody in the world should know about. And I just want to plug her real quick.
Sure.
They're the Wellness Project for Children. These are books that are written, beautifully illustrated, all these little stories. They use animals and children, and they are books for children that are going through severe illness. Okay. Not only do they help the children learn breathing techniques and coping skills, but they have guides in each one for the medical providers, the caregivers, the staff, the nurses, and they're super poignant and super good and helpful. They've been going around the world for quite a while. She's just revamped and rewritten all of them and brought them all up into the 21st century. And they're just gorgeous books. And now there's puppets and there's videos that go with all of this. But the Wellness Project for Children with Kira Corser, I'm editing her videos, and that's my new job right now. Amazing. And because I'm also, you know, editor on behind the scenes. But so that's very exciting. And so if anybody knows anyone in the medical profession, the Wellness Project for Children is just really near and dear to my heart. And I believe it's wonderful. And it also got the fairy back out because I actually got to dress up as fairy recently and go bust out and promote her books and get to do storytelling with these books. So
wonderful.
And then Joey Travolta has said, I can send all of my creations and he will take a look at my materials. And that is super exciting.
It is. I love Joey. I always say Joey's the real deal.
He really is. And he's really being patient with me. And so that's it. That's all the news.
I love it. I love it. Well, we want people to check out we'll let you know when it's ready, but the Brilliance on the Spectrum podcast, really, I had a good time being on your show, and I'm sure your other guests did too. So we'll look forward to all of that. Robin, thank you so much for being with us. All right.
Thank you so much.
You take care. We're going to take a pause and we'll be back to finish out the show. So stick with us.
Okay.
If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.